We'll now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the witness again for appearing today. I do want to give you an opportunity to restate your position with reference to moving expeditiously, and you have been very clear that you're not refusing to do this, but I think that you should have the opportunity to make the record as clear as possible on this issue.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My position is twofold. One, I believe that Congress has given us a mandate. We need to fulfill it. I am committed to moving forward with it as expeditiously as we can. And secondly, I will say on the substance, since the 1980s, I have been in favor of lifting this ban. So this is not something that I personally oppose. I do think that there are other considerations that need to be taken into account, and we are looking at those.
There seems to be a good deal of consternation with reference to the comment period. Is it the norm to have a comment period, or is it the exception to have a comment period?
It is absolutely the norm. The lack of a comment period is quite rare, and it is generally done either in exigent market circumstances or where some external event causes an obligation to kick in unexpectedly that people aren't prepared for. And in our case, even in the midst of the market crisis, it happened on average 2 or 3 times a year.
And have you received comments on this piece of legislation?
Yes, we received over 220 comments, which were mixed. A little less than half of them were in support of the proposal. A little more than half opposed the proposal as it was put out for comment.
Let's talk for just a moment about your budget, because it has been mentioned. I mentioned it earlier, and I have heard other members mention it as well. While I have your 2014 numbers, your 2012 numbers, I will focus on 2013. My evidence indicates that you requested $156 billion. The House passed you requested $1.56 billion. House passed $1.371 billion, and the actual budget was $1.321 billion. Decidedly less than what you were asking for. Did you ask for that $1.56 billion because you actually needed the $1.56 billion to perform efficaciously?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, even prior to the passage of these 2 major pieces of legislation, we had certain very pressing needs. In particular, I would highlight the fact that we don't have sufficient resources to do a good enough job examining the investment advisor population. We examine 8% of the investment advisor population a year, and that simply isn't sufficient. So one of the things that we intend to do is to try to beef up that program. In addition to that, we are way behind the outside world we regulate in terms of the technological tools we use. Excuse me. The technological tools we use both to examine the entities that we regulate and in even as simple a case as when we litigate cases in court. And that is another area where we really need the funds to catch up.
You have 35,000 entities that you oversee. It's a huge number.
Yes, it is.
And 11,000 investment advisors. Can you in any way put these things aside to make sure that you get other things done, or do you have to try to do everything?
You have to try to do everything, and what you do to do it is try to develop techniques to get to be as efficient as possible. For example, in our examination program, we have taken many steps over the last few years to try to enhance our risk assessment and the analytics we use in determining which entities we examine. But in the end, when you have to do everything and you don't have enough, you don't do anything quite as well as you should.
Quickly, on the question of the money market fund, did FSOC have anything to do with the reason you endeavored to deal with the money market fund?
I think that answer might differ depending on who at the Commission you spoke with. If you may recall, before the FSOC got involved, we had made some changes in money market fund regulation, and in 2010, I believe, and we said at the time that there was going to be a second step where we were going to analyze whether further changes were needed. Our chairman was working on that. There was opposition from other commission members, and she decided not to present it to the commission. At that point, the FSOC stepped in and said that, and made a request of us that we look at these issues. So they definitely have been playing a role.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the extra time. I yield back.